Sanford championed Act 388, and for those of you who don't know, that changed the way we fund our schools, removing it from our property taxes and putting it on a sales tax. What are your thoughts of Act 388? We'll start with Mr. Stewart, and then we'll go to the mayor, and we'll come back to Dr. Richburg. And should it be repealed? Why or why not? And you're going to have 4 minutes to answer this question, but your thoughts on Act 388, whether or not it should be repealed, and why or why not?
Yes, it should be repealed. And since this is a family show, I won't tell you what I really think about Act 388. But to me, it was one of the worst pieces of legislation that has come through our legislative body. I've heard and we have a fairly good, we have had a fairly good and a fairly balanced tax system. Income tax, sales tax, and property tax. We're probably the highest compared to other states in income tax, but we're lower in other areas, and again, it was fairly balanced. Act 388 took that three-legged stool, and they sawed about 2 inches off of it, and now it tips, and they want to know why. And what we told them, we being the county, because it really affects us, we said, the citizens are not going to be satisfied with this, the local governments are not going to be satisfied with this, and whenever the complaints come in, they're not coming to you, they're coming to us, because the tax notices go out under the banner of the Clarendon County Council. Now, I've heard lots of complaints, and I know that some of my citizens think that I am just passing the buck. And I am, because the buck needs to stop up in Columbia, and that's one of the things that I am in favor of. It is inequitable, unfair, ill thought out, and needs to be repealed, and that's, Mama said, oh, don't say anything if you can't say something nice, and that's the nicest thing I can say about it. Thank you.
I agree with pretty much everything his wife said, but now the original intent of Act 388 was good. That's the original intent. And the original intent was to keep property owners from being taxed out of their homes. Now, having said that, it is a bad piece of legislation. And as president of the Municipal Association in South Carolina, we spent a lot of time last year lobbying against that bill, and somebody had the bright idea of trying to do away with the part of the bill that deals with what we call point of sale. And what point of sale does, the bill, what it does, first of all, it caps the tax on homes. And it says that at reassessment, the property value, regardless of what it's worth, cannot be placed on the tax rolls at more than 15% of what the value is. And it also said that when the property is sold, it can't be placed on the tax rolls at more than 15%. Now what that does, just to give an example, if you have a home that costs $100,000, and it's now worth $125,000, because of this law, it can only be placed on the tax rolls at $115,000. So it costs local government and school boards money. It costs us revenue. It's a bad piece of legislation. It has cost the state of South Carolina since 2006 $585 million. It took resources, it took revenue from a stable source like property tax to an unstable source like sales tax. And so now that the economy is bad and folks don't have money to spend, the penny that they added to the sales tax to make up for the loss in property tax is not making us whole. So it's a bad piece of legislation. And the other thing about it, when the TRAC Commission was appointed, that's the Tax Realignment Commission, to look at all of our tax statute and see if they could probably find some ways to help us with our revenue situation. They were told they couldn't touch Act 388. And Act 388 is probably the most important piece of tax legislation that should have been addressed. So it's a bad piece of legislation. It's cost us money. And also, you know, as I'm campaigning, I've gone into parts of Clarendon County that I didn't even know existed. And I can tell you now, this law protects rapidly appreciating properties. We don't have that much in Clarendon County. This particular act protects homes like in Myrtle Beach, Hilton Head Island, Charleston. So what's happening is that the folks who have lower valued homes are carrying the tax burden. And it also put a lot more of the tax burden on the businesses in South Carolina. So it's just a bad piece of legislation. It either need to be repealed or vastly improved.
I agree with Councilman Stewart and Mayor Johnson. It's a bad law, and I think that citizens of District 64 is burdened because there's been impartiality in reference to the tax that is being assessed to lower income homes. And I think that it should be the opposite way around.
Fair enough.